Look, Zoe. 1917 zone, Roman zone, American Civil War zone. This whole place is divided into time zones.
But there's a blank space in the middle. There's nothing marked at all.
Yes. Yes, and I think that's where we've got to get to.
Hello and welcome to Who Watches Who, a Doctor Who podcast with me, Matthew, and as always, I am joined with...
Yes, hello, it's Scott, and we're back again with the War Games.
Woo! The best story ever with the least filler we've ever seen, ever. There's no filler in this story, it's just non-stop thrilling action. Wow, yes. Last week we covered the first two parts of the War Games, and this week we will be covering parts 3 and 4, which usually are like the end parts to Classic Who story. However, this is a 10-part story, so we are like not even halfway. So
when you put it like
exciting.
that.
Yeah. It's been pretty fun. Check out last week's episode if you missed it and want to see some fun on this day or some behind the scenes for the writers in the making of and the production for this episode. But before we dive into episode 3, Scott, you do have a slight thing to say, apparently.
Yes, so I did some digging into the character of Lady Jennifer, and I found some interesting things. 3 interesting things, in fact, and the ordering I put them in is like the most normal to the most insane thing I found about this character, so strap yourselves in. So firstly, she does appear in Doctor Who again, in a book, in fact, a canon book. She appears in the novel Players, written by Terrance Dicks, who also co-wrote this episode. The book came out in 1999, and it stars the Sixth Doctor and Peri. Can you say it stars the Sixth Doctor and Peri if there's a book? Yeah,
sure. They're featured. They're the main characters, you know?
Yeah. It was the first book to canonize the Season 6B's theory, so we'll probably discuss Season 6B in a few weeks.
We've brought it up a few times in the podcast before.
So this book is a semi-sequel to the War Games, and it stars a group of immortals called the Players who mess around with historical events. And in this book, they try to murder Churchill before World War II, which sounds quite interesting. I feel like I need to dig into some Doctor Who books. It sounds interesting.
Sure, but who has the time?
I know, there's already too much in terms of just episodes alone. Remember when we started this podcast and we're like, yeah, we're going to deep dive into all the books and audio dramas, and we soon discovered there's way too much, and we've not even scratched the surface of a TV show itself. It's too much.
Yeah.
And in this book, Lady Jennifer teams up with the Sixth Doctor to try and save Churchill. Terrance Dicks actually wrote a trilogy with the Players. The second book is called Endgame with the Eighth Doctor, and the third book is called World Game with the Second Doctor. The second interesting fact I found is kind of interesting because this TV show kind of came up in our personal lives, in your personal life, I would say. So the writer of the book Outlander, Diana Gableton, was inspired by watching Lady Jennifer and Jamie interact in the show. And then she wrote Outlander based on these two characters, because Outlander is about a World War II nurse who goes back in time to the Scottish Highlands, where she falls in love with Jamie Fraser. Obviously, the character of Jamie is called Jamie in Doctor Who, and he's played by Fraser Hines, so it's a combination of the two names.
Yeah.
And that's kind of interesting because, you know, Outlander came up in our personal conversations right before we started recording the War Games, so that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Outlander was they still are apparently. They're very adamant to try and get me as an extra on that show at the minute. But I can't drive, so I just can't do it.
Yeah. But it is kind of interesting. Just the weekend before we started like recording this story, but it gets brought up in our personal lives. So the third very interesting fact is there's a non-canon book which has Lady Jennifer as a character. She appears in a book called The Bloody Red Baron, written by Kim Newman. And I've sent you a link to the Wikipedia page for this. It's the second book in the Anno Dracula series, and it's set in a world where Dracula was never defeated and vampires spread across the globe. This series was co-created by Neil Gaiman. He didn't write any of the books, but it's co-created by Neil Gaiman, which is interesting. The series is kind of like Kingdom Hearts, where it features a load of fictional characters and historical figures appropriate to the time, who are either named or described in detail. Like, this book is set in World War I and features characters like Dracula, Dr. Caligari, Hitler, Edgar Allan Poe, one of the characters from Fright Night, some characters from the Biggle series, Sherlock Holmes, a character from Citizen Kane, Winston Churchill, J.R.R. Tolkien, H.G. Wells, Woodrow Wilson, Snoopy from Peanuts, and Man-Bat from the Batman series, and also Lady Jennifer
Sherlock
for some
Holmes?
reason. Isn't that insane?
Sherlock Holmes shows up. Yeah, Mycroft is there. That is insane. Jesus. This sounds like a cool book. I want to read this book now.
Oh
my God,
dude.
there's so many characters in it. Jesus.
I know,
Christ.
it's insane. I just wonder how all these characters kind of get mixed into the fold. But you know, I was reading
Snoopy from Peanuts?
Yes. It's insane. But yeah, I was reading this Wikipedia page and I was thinking, oh man, I'm really wanting to read a book about vampires which has a lot of characters in it. So, Matthew, do you have any recommendations about a book about vampires?
No.
Okay.
Sure. If you are one of those fat dorks who likes to read in their spare time and takes enjoyment from staring at words on paper and imagining things in your head, I have been fortunate enough for the past 4 years to be plagued with having written a book and attempting to get that book published, and we are finally at the long end part of that where the book is coming out. My book, Can You Taste the Color Orange, comes out on the 28th of March. It is a sci-fi, sort of comedy, sort of psychedelic-y, sort of fantasy. There's some horror elements in there as well. I'd say it's a big. There's a lot going on in the book. It does have vampires in it. Spoilers. It does have. They're not really a plot-driving thing. They're just like they just exist in this world. There's multiple other things as well. I've got a link. There'll be a link in the description to go and buy my book. It's available on Amazon. Like, you can buy it on Waterstone's website now as well, I think. Like a bunch of other different places. Wherever you buy books, you'll be able to buy my book. It has taken a fucking lifetime to get to this point. I think as long as we've been doing this podcast, longer maybe than we've been doing this podcast, I have been working on this book. I've been working on it for fucking ever. And if you are a sleuth or like obsessed with the podcast, you could probably go back in certain episodes where we've alluded to it or made references to it whilst like tiptoeing around it and being rather sneaky. But yes, I have written a book. As you have seen behind me, it says "Buy my book." I hopefully that's legible. My screen is mirrored, so I had to write that backwards, and I don't know. I think the Y might be the wrong way around, but don't worry about it. It's a fun book. Can You Taste the Color Orange? Please buy it. I would be very appreciative, and I'd really like to know what people think, because obviously, you know, for the past like 3 years I have co-hosted a podcast where I critique one of the greatest sci-fi fictions of all time. So now I've written my own sci-fi fiction. I will not stand for any criticism. I want nothing but praise and appreciation and your money. So please go and buy my book. buy my book. I won't hammer on too much about it, but buy my book.
Yeah, as one of the few
book.
people who's actually read the book, I'd recommend it. I've not even read the final draft, I don't think, but yeah, I've read several iterations.
You read like the first draft that I finished.
Yeah,
like that was the first. It was like I was like, oh my god, I've actually written a draft that has an ending. I've got to the end of the book. Now I can go back and redo everything and make it good again.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'll be interesting actually.
Yeah,
see it, like you read it, you're like, oh shit, all these changes suck.
I'm excited to read it because it's been years, and B, I imagine several things have changed. So it's going to be like a brand new book to me.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to reading it again. Is there a promo or anything to go alongside this, or do you want to fit in a promo?
Sure. I have this little video that I'm working on. I'm planning on making several to slowly promote this video. Or promote this video, promote the fucking book. It's not a video. It's the opposite. It's the opposite of a video. Can you taste the color orange? If so, we'd love to hear from you. You must be able to taste it. Not see or smell, but taste. Taste it. We do not want people with synesthesia. We want people who can taste orange. If you think you fit these requirements, please contact us at. We'll be in touch. This has been a message from the Organization of Real and New Great Energies and Sciences. Here for a brighter future for all of humanity. Yeah, it's fun. There'll be more stuff soon as well. Publishers are making a bunch of shit for me to promote outwards, and I think I might even, if I'm lucky, be able to do some like radio interviews and things like that, which would be pretty fun. I'll try plug the podcast on there if I get the chance. But, if you're one of the lucky people that listen to us every week, clearly there's something about the way that we think about stories that you enjoy. So if you'd like to see how I try to cobble together my own story, I'd really recommend getting the book. Really do. And that's unbiased. My unbiased opinion is that you need to buy my book.
Yeah, my unbiased opinion is that you need to buy his book. I hate this guy. I don't compliment him ever. And I really enjoyed the book, I'm afraid to say. So check it out. With that said, do you want to jump into episode 3 of the War Games, which isn't as exciting as your book, I would say.
It's true. That's honest. More stuff happened. My book, it's like 250 pages. There's way more plot than you'll get in these 40 minutes of Doctor Who we're about to watch. Well, yeah, let us dive in to War Games episode 3.
You have a comfortable trip, sir?
Excellent. The Warlord is pleased with our work. The rate of progress must be accelerated.
A report from my zone, sir. The prisoners that escaped from the chateau have been recaptured in the German lines. I've advised they be shot immediately. They tell some ridiculous story about being time travelers.
Time travelers? And you ordered them to be shot? I want them brought here for reinterrogation.
Episode 3 begins with the conclusion to the cliffhanger from episode 2. If you draw your minds back to episode 2, the cliffhanger was a bunch of Roman soldiers charging at everybody, and it was like, holy shit, these guys are taking a very long time to get here to attack us. Yeah. They're really far away. How are we ever going to escape? What if we just get back in the car and reverse out? And when they reverse out, they leave the time zone and they fade away, and the problem's solved.
Honestly, they could have probably done the same thing on foot, to be honest with you. You know?
Just step backwards, yeah.
Yeah. Not even backwards, just casually walk through the portal.
Yeah, it's really bad. It's a really unsatisfying conclusion, and the Romans don't play into this episode again?
Nope.
I don't remember if they even come back, but they're so inconsequential.
I don't think they come back full stop in the next 6 episodes, so yeah. Completely inconsequential. I mean, very fun. They do pop into episode 4, but they're just kind of like background characters, so yeah. The best kind of characters, background characters.
Yeah, of course, of course. The Doctor and they get into the car and they come out and they're like, "Is this the only map that you've got? Where can we get another map to find out where we're going?" And they're like, "Oh, let's go back to the military base." And they do a little coup on the guy that's in charge of the military base. You know, they like arrest him. They've got some fellow soldiers that are on their side, and then they see this cool safe, and they're like, "Holy shit, let's spend the rest of the episode here." As they try to break into this safe, and the Doctor is like humming and hawing, like, how could I possibly do this? How could I get in? How could I get past this really complicated lock? Maybe if we blew it up or if we broke it or something like that. And a guy comes in with a bomb and he's like, "Here, I got this bomb that we could use." And the Doctor's like, awesome stuff. And he takes apart the bomb and deactivates it and like creates this long string to stick in and everything. And this is 10 minutes in the episode gone. Halfway through the episode. Isn't that spectacular?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they basically just tie up Toby Jones, and there's this new guy who pops in, and he's like, "Oh, what the hell is going on here?" And meanwhile, the bomb's about to go off at any second, and he leaves.
Yeah.
Like, he leaves just like a second before the bomb goes off, and he comes back in. But
then he comes back in when the bomb goes off, and they get the map anyway, and they manage to escape this dude, and they're like, I do like talking about the map. The time zones pun, I think, is very I think it's very funny. They have this map where everything is a different time zone, quite literally, where it's like a different period in history that's happening.
Yeah.
And I just enjoy that they call it a time zone. It's my favorite thing in this episode.
I mentioned this last week, but I'm convinced that maybe the author of Westworld saw this episode, because, you know, Westworld deals with the same kind of thing, except it's robots instead of actual humans. You know, there's like the West world, and there's a future world, and there's like a samurai world. There's heaps of worlds inside of like this theme park. It feels like it might be inspired by this. I don't know. I've tried to look it up, but there's nothing on the author's connection to Doctor Who or anything. So maybe it's just a coincidence. Yeah.
Maybe just parallel thinking. That's what they call it, isn't it?
You know, the entire time when we're watching the Doctor deal with this safe, it's like, why doesn't he just use a sonic screwdriver? But then,
sonic screwdriver that he pulls out later in the episode.
You need 6 or 7 pages, so I give him a free pass for this.
Yeah, but they manage to they go back out in the car and they're driving off to their next location when they get stopped by some German soldiers, and they're like, "Hey, don't shoot us, we're an ambulance." And then they get arrested again by these German soldiers. So the plot's kind of just spinning its fucking wheels, where it is, you know, the exact same thing as what happened in the last episode, where we get a smidge bit more information, but they've been captured again, and it's we're going through all the same fucking stuff. But they get captured by this German soldier guy, who basically, he starts to believe that the Doctor isn't from this time, and he has Jamie and what's her name? Zoe. Yeah, okay. He has Jamie and Zoe there to like back him up, where he's like, Jamie's from the past and Zoe's from the future, and look, I have a sonic screwdriver, and I can literally use it as a screwdriver and take the screw out of your gun. I think, is this one of the few times where you've seen it as a screwdriver?
Yes, I can't think of too many times apart from Into the Wild Blue Yonder, when he's trying to use it on the TARDIS lock, if you remember. But yeah, I think that's only 2 times I remember him using it as an actual screwdriver. It's kind of wild. But yeah, this German guy then gets hypnotized. In the original script, the hypnosis was to take place in front of the Doctor, and he'd just be like, I wonder why this guy suddenly changed his mind. Like, we were getting through to him, and then suddenly this guy talked to him, put on the monocle, you know?
Yeah, there's no way of knowing what happened. No way of knowing. But this guy, the guy that hypnotizes him, the like general dude or whatever that comes in, is the most cartoonish German villain character that I've seen in a while. Where he's got really weird like high pitched voice, and he's got a scar down his eye, and he's bald. He's like straight out of like a James Bond, and when he puts the monocle on, it's even worse. But you know, it's whatever. He's like a dumb caricature.
Apparently, the lady who plays Lady Jennifer and the lady who plays Zoe had a huge crush on this guy, and they just talked about how they found him attractive, and it's interesting.
Ah, good for him, I guess.
Yeah, we're caught
What
up.
else happens? Are we caught up? Oh my god, that's insane.
Yes.
Like 6 minutes. Like...
Yeah, this one is one of the most fillery episodes. It carries on the tradition of like episode 3 being the most filler, because we had the same problem with the Enemy of the World, where it's just Victoria in the kitchen the entire time.
Yeah. Oh my god. But like at least that's not like. I haven't seen the I've only seen up to episode 4. I haven't seen 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10 yet. But like we're only on episode 3 and we're getting this much filler. There's so much more to go. There's so much more.
And you know, one of the things they talk about is they invented like the idea of all these different time zones as a way to fill time. You know, if we need more time, we can go visit the Romans or another time period.
Yeah.
Why not just, you know, spend an entire episode with the Romans? That would at least be more interesting, I would imagine, you know?
Sure, I guess it's more interesting, but it's also more of a budget expense when it's way cheaper to just be like, it's World War One for these 5 episodes, you know? Like, that's fine. Everybody, we can use the same costumes, the same sets, and that's 5 episodes rather than having to do a different set and different costumes each episode, you know? Oh, that's way better.
But, you know, we already have the Roman costumes, you know? Like, we're just going to use it for, like, 5 seconds.
They need, you know, that they can. It's cheaper to pull them out the warehouse for 5 seconds than have to use them for a whole day, you know, and get even more for extras and other characters. Oh, what a nightmare!
Yes. We will talk about it in episode 4, but yeah, there's a lot of cut arounds and shortcuts they do to try and give the illusion of having more actors. So it's going to be interesting to talk about.
It's always the shit. Like obviously it's understandable, just budgetary reasons why things like this happen. But it's always a shame when a story is actively like hindered by cost-saving choices and things that will say when you're making monetary decisions rather than creative decisions. Like I understand why it happens, but it's just a sucky world, isn't it? Just a sucky world where those have to be made.
That's why I'm so excited to hopefully we'll get the colorized version of this at the end of the year. I'm very curious to see what it's like in like a 90-minute time slot. I bet
it's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Like I imagine, you know, we've done 2.5 episodes so far. I imagine it's going to take up like 10 or 15 minutes of screen time, you know?
Yeah, it's gonna be so brief because fucking nothing happens, man. So the episode continues on with cartoon evil German guy revealing that, I mean, information we already knew because he hypnotized him, but double confirmation that he's also got one of those computer screens behind his painting that allows him to talk with these mysterious guys from behind the screen that we don't know who they are. And then the doctor does the exact, he unscrews the gun again. And they play out that whole scene again, which is really fun to watch. And the guy breaks his brainwashing, but it's, you know, Jamie and that already they're holding the gun on him. They're like, "Fuck you, we're getting out of here."
One bit I do like about this scene is the doctor's like, "Oh, I've got another trick for you." And then he tosses the gun to Jamie, and then Jamie just points the gun at this German guy. That's a great little bit of comic timing, but yeah, we really just watch him just explain himself again for like a solid minute here. It just it takes its time.
Yeah. And after that scene finishes, we then go into this I guess the game controllers area where these people are working away, and we get introduced to another villain character. This is our third villain character so far. And this guy is even more cartoony than the last two guys were. He's got like a weird kind of handlebar mustache, but not really. It doesn't connect in the middle, but it's like long on either side. I don't know what you'd call that type of facial hair. But he's wearing like a high collar and everything. He looks very evil, and he's like the warlord is unhappy or something at all these people that keep escaping. So there's even another evil guy above him. It's a very structured system.
And you mentioned these people being cartoony, and I'm excited for us to finally get to the Warlord, because his performance is something else. His performance is actually real. His performance is like a real human being, which is really interesting. So I'm looking forward to getting to that. But yeah, this whole stuff inside like the war rooms is the shit I really like about this story, and it's where I perk up. It's great stuff. I just love the sets, and I just love the way these people talk to each other. It's really interesting to me.
I think it's interesting. I think it's more interesting than the stuff before it, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm super in love with it in this episode, at least. I think it picks up a bit more in the next episode, but in this episode, I was like, okay, I'm like falling asleep, man. What's happening? We'd get a really fun bit of like sudden voiceover where we go into the thoughts of new evil guy, and it's like he's like I wonder if time travelers. It's so bizarre.
Yeah, this was originally written as like a spoken aside, not voiceover. So I kind of prefer the Caves of Androsani approach, where he's just turning to the camera and just talking to himself.
Yeah, looking dead in the lens. Yeah.
God, a lot of his story just reminds me of the Caves of Androsani, and I just want to watch that story again. What a fantastic story.
It was better than this is so far.
Yeah.
The Doctor in that car appears out during the American Civil War. That's the new area that they are in.
And the minute they mention the American Civil War, we're going to get some dodgy American accents.
This is also where the action scene for the episode kicks in. If we were feeling a bit dull from all the crazy amount of plot that's happening, and now we can at least enjoy some action where a tree like falls down in front of the car, and they get shot at by a bunch of dudes, and then the soldier they're with shoots a bunch of guys, and it goes on for a couple minutes in like dead silence, where all you're hearing is the sound effects that are happening, and it somehow it makes it even duller than it was. Like, it's an action scene. Surely I should be excited by this, and I am not.
The choreography is fine, and the direction
doesn't
is
exist.
No, it's fine for the time. This is 55 years old, and they're working with what they could do on a TV budget back then. None of the punches look like they hit. Like, it's just
most of the fighting is just we'll grab each other and kind of wrestle to the ground.
But this is a TV show that's just Star Trek suffers, the original series suffers from the same problem sometimes. It's not just a problem that's exclusive to Doctor Who, but it's more noticeable with Doctor Who because this show was made in like a shoestring budget. But the tree blocking their paths reminds me of the Demons, where I think it's a cliffhanger actually in the Demons, where a big tree falls in front of them, and the resolution is they move the tree the next episode. that's the resolution to the cliffhanger.
It's good. It's it leaves you on the edge of your seat wanting to see more. But the Doctor and that run away, leaving Soldier Guy behind to fight off the guys that are around him. We find out later on that he's been captured in this next scene that we're heading to, which opens up with two of our baddies, the guy from the first episode with the glasses, and new baddie, the German guy with the scar, playing a strategic game where they're like, I'm going to move my troops here and put them here, and you won't stand a chance. And this guy's like, yeah, but I have secret invincibility, and I have these guys that can come in here that I was hiding before that you didn't know. And the guy's like, but that's not fair. And it's a cool shot, and I guess establishes that they're playing off each other with these battles. They're trying to outmaneuver one another. And we find out, this is where we find out that the soldier guy's been captured as well. Again, it's not much plot, but it's like a little sliver.
Yeah,
it's like a little droplet. We're like, oh, it's moving forward slightly.
And the shot of like them beneath the camera beneath the transparent table is probably like the most dynamic shot Doctor Who has had in like 40 episodes at this point.
Well, I mean, sure, it's like a very cool creative shot, but the camera work in this story, as you said last week, has been very good. Like there's been a lot of like fun zooms and some cool maneuvers and things like that. So I think the cinematography has been pretty solid. I think it's like that shot stands out in this episode because in this episode the cinematography is really kind of just blasé and we'll do a static close up wide shot sort of thing. But in the previous 2 episodes they were doing all sorts of funky shit. So I'm glad that that's
correct,
continuing a little bit more.
Yeah, and they are really trying their best, and it does help that we have a good director on this one compared to something like Dragonfire, where it's just
there were some cool shots in Dragonfire.
Yeah, but a lot of the shots you're just questioning. Why is the Doctor doing this?
Why is anything happening? The Doctor and that go to take shelter in like a barn or something because they run away from the car. And this is where we get the really.
I think the car is out of petrol because it got
like
shot
down
at
or something.
Yeah.
And like a TARDIS appears essentially, and a bunch of guys come running out of it, and they're like, "Holy shit! It's bigger on the inside. It's just like the TARDIS. I wonder what's going on." And the Doctor's like, let's investigate." And he goes in with Zoe, but Jamie doesn't go in because he's distracted by someone that's there or something.
Yeah,
because the box disappears.
Lady Jennifer is standing at like the door of the barn and looking out at the gunshots. And Jamie has to go and save her, which I guess is part of the inspiration of the Outlander series, is that kind of dynamic here, which doesn't really get much work in the next few episodes, honestly. It's kind of wild to me that this kind of interactions between these two characters created an entire book series and a 7 or 8 season show.
That show's really popular show.
That show's been on forever, and is it on Lionsgate or MGM? It's like one of those services that is like an add-on.
I think it was on
Amazon.
Prime for a while, and then it got moved to something. But it's also like they shoot that in Scotland, and it is a huge boost to our economy. Like that series alone does so much for the economy. It's insane.
Outlander UK streaming, because it's kind of an awkward show to watch because it's just, I think in America it's on fucking Amazon Prime, but here it's just it you have to search to find it.
I'm pretty sure I saw adverts for it on Amazon Prime years ago. Maybe they watch Outlander season 1 Prime Video.
I think you have to pay for it though. That's awkward.
It's now on Lionsgate Plus. It was a Prime original, then it got moved to Lionsgate Plus.
Bullshit.
But they're closing down Lionsgate Plus, aren't they? So it doesn't matter anyway. So we'll go back to Prime.
It's still bullshit, but we live in Scotland and we have to subscribe to this obscure streaming service to get it.
There's too many streaming services. I'm glad they're all failing.
Yeah, it's a show I'll probably watch when it arrives on proper Prime, because it's been on my watch list for a while. It's just I don't want to subscribe to another streaming service.
I'm never gonna watch it. Never gonna watch it. But the TARDIS thing disappears, and our cliffhanger is Jamie running to miss it and then going, no. That's our cliffhanger. He literally said, oh no.
And one thing I forgot to mention last episode is there's no Sting music as the cliffhanger is approaching its end. There's no. Yeah. It's very awkward because the scene just ends and then we get the credits. It's just so unusual because
it's just like, and done.
And it's always something I forget. We don't have it in the first 250 episodes. Like, this is episode 240 whatever.
Yeah. God,
kind of wild.
So many episodes. That's so many episodes.
God, imagine being a kid and watching all 250 episodes, and you've been hanging in there for 6 years, and you finally get to learn about the Doctor's past. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's like season 6, and you're like, oh, they'll probably end the show soon.
Yeah.
Not knowing that it'll go for another 20 seasons before it gets cancelled and then brought back again, and then rebooted again, and blah blah blah. Yeah, crazy stuff. But that is the end of episode 3. One of the weakest episodes so far. Garbage episode where nothing happened. Like maybe 3 plot things happened in the entire runtime.
Yeah. But yeah, on
Garbage.
to episode 4, which I consider to be much better. So I'm looking forward to getting into this one.
Sure. Let us dive into episode 4 of the War Games.
Was the experiment successful?
Partly, but the specimen showed signs of mental unbalance after the process.
Then the modifications were not successful.
But I think we found the cause. One of the students has been extremely helpful to me. That one over there.
Run, Zoe! Run! Stop them!
So, episode 4 begins where episode 3 ended, kind of. Where it's a repeat of the cliffhanger, but this time it's different because they say different lines of dialogue as they're going there. And Jamie, when he's running towards the TARDIS this time, he's like, Zoe, the Doctor! And it's way more clunky. Like, he calls him the Doctor rather than just Zoe, Doctor. Zoe, the Doctor! Like, it's... What a weird line delivery that was. But everything ends up basically the same, where he gets captured. And we see the conclusion to the gunfire where a bunch of American Civil War soldiers come running on in to capture them as we go off to
Matthew,
Zoe.
Which line reading do you think is canon in Doctor Who?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Both. Timey-wimey. Both are canon. And the... Zoe and that are on this TARDIS. She's like, who else could possibly have a TARDIS? Who could have created something like this, Doctor? And the Doctor's like, and he's like, let's just continue to look around some more, and we'll worry about that when we get there.
And of course, like, the set dressing is like full of shower curtains and stuff, because it's classic Who. But we just did Dragonfire, which also has shower curtains everywhere. I think this works because it's in black and white, so it's slightly more believable. Something about the black and white gives them a bit more room in the
lack
budget.
of detail. There's a lack of detail to it, so you can believe it's something other than it is.
And I do wonder what it's going to look like in color when the colorized version comes out, because everything is like yellow, bright pink. They have to go with extreme colors on set to make it stand out in black and white. So it's very different to shooting in color. So it's going to be interesting to see how close they keep to all the colors.
Yeah, well, see, that's why I like recolorization is cool as like a glimpse into the past, but the black and white does give it a specific vibe, and it was made to be seen in black and white, so you're altering it from how the original creation was intended. I would be fine if they kept it in black and white and they were just like, here's a supercut version of this story, where we just fix the pacing issues, and you can have that instead, and I feel like it would take them much less time to make those than it would be to also colorize it. But also, I guess people don't like watching black and white things as much, so
that's the whole reason why it exists in the first place, to make it more accessible. That's why Russell T Davies decided to do this, and it does work, because it really worked with the Daleks. I really enjoyed the Daleks. I wasn't too sure about it at first, but it really turned out well, apart from a few issues here and there, and I hope they do fix it for the War Games if we do get the War Games, because it's not 100% confirmed at this point, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, and as the Doctor and Zoe explore this new time machine, they come across some Roman soldiers, and there's so many of them. How did they afford to pay so many extras? There's so many.
This episode is the episode where it's obvious that they're cheating a lot, because, you know, the shot of the Roman soldiers, there's like a set of mirrors behind them to give the illusion there's more of them. And then we cut to, you know, the Doctor looking into another room where there's German soldiers. It's the same actors as the Roman soldiers. And then the Doctor and Zoe kind of hide around a corner, and Roman soldiers walk on by. And it's the same Roman soldiers walking by the camera twice in a row. You know, we're just walking in a circle.
Yes, it takes forever. It takes forever. It's so dull.
But you know, if you're a kid in 1969 and you're used to this pacing, you'd be on the edge of your seat, like, holy shit, there's so many Roman soldiers, you know. Like,
sure, but do you want to know something about children in 1969? They were all dumb as fuck. They all had zero. They all had zero media literacy. You know, like you could show them anything, they'd be amazed. The story with Jamie and the lady he's with, whose name I don't remember, is really repetitive. I think as we go to them next, and we see they got captured by some American soldiers in the Civil War, and they're like, oh, we're gonna keep you guys detained and whatnot, and then they try to escape, but they get interrupted because they get attacked by some Confederate soldiers who are coming, and that pushes the American soldiers away, so the Confederates come in, and then they capture Jamie and that instead, and then Jamie and that break out again with the help from an escaped American soldier, or I guess he's just also, like, I don't know why he's there, he just appears, he literally just appears.
Yeah, he's part of the rebellion, essentially.
Yeah. And it's like we get two scenes back to back that are exactly the fucking same, you know?
Yeah, and you know, in the scene where Jamie and Lady Jennifer gets captured, and you know the dodgy American accented people are like, yeah, you're spies, and Jamie's like, oh, not again. The characters are even becoming aware that the story is repetitive here.
And it really is. But we find out that the American soldiers and the Confederate soldiers, we know specifically, are being controlled by the evil German guy who's doing American accent instead, and it's a very flawless American accent. I really believed he's from the United States.
Yeah,
we then go,
it's one of the worst American accents I've heard in this show, I would imagine.
It's pretty good. It's pretty great. We then go back to the big bad guys or not the super big bad guys, but the biggest bad guy that we know of so far. And he's like, these rebels are only making up 5%, like everybody except for 5%. 95% of people can be hypnotized, 5% can't. And those 5% are causing a fucking headache because they're ruining all of everything, and our master plan is going to be disrupted. And this is some, what they call foreshadowing in the business. There's stranger things afoot.
The war chief here is talking to like the guy with the best voice in the entire episode. His voice is like really soothing to listen to. I really like his voice.
Yeah. The Doctor and Zoe are traveling around with the funky glasses. It makes this episode for me because the rest of it is like really boring, but the funky glasses are such a vibe that I am more than okay with them having funky glasses on. Weird. They must have been able to see fuck all out with them.
I know, yes. I bet you Patrick Troughton put on the glasses and he's like, I imagine him thinking to himself, oh shit, this is what, you know, all the Yetis and Cybermen see. Like, this is what their life is like. I feel so sorry for them. But, you know, as we're wandering around, in the script, it indicated that some of the alien technicians were going to be women. But, you know, the budget meant they had to reuse a lot of actors. So a lot of the alien technicians are, like, also doubling as the Romans and the Germans. So there's really only, like, 15 actors across this entire thing. But, like, probably like
They do a good job masking
100
it.
actors.
I don't think I really noticed it. They do a decent job. Jamie in that managed to escape, but the soldier that freed them, the rebel, who I think is worth noting is a black man.
Yes.
Because this is during the American Civil War, and he is fighting on the sides of the Americans, fighting against the Confederates, who obviously were fighting for state rights.
Yeah.
That's what the American Civil War was all about, right? It wasn't about it was about states' rights. States' rights to do what, you might ask? We'll just leave that question in the air.
Yeah, there is some dodgy revisionism here, and they give the line to the black actor who I imagine wouldn't have been happy to read that line, but he does his best. He's a good actor. I really like his role here.
He's solid, yeah.
And 60s Doctor Who has a weird history with black actors,
I think you'll find the 1960s kind of has a weird history
Really?
with black people.
Are you sure?
It's not just confined to Doctor Who.
Sometimes classic Doctor Who can be really progressive. In the 10th Planet, we had the first ever black astronaut on television. In The Enemy of the World, we had a really strong female black character who was like the food tester for Patrick Troughton's villain character, and she was really good. But you also have like Tomb of the Cybermen and Terror of the Autons, who have the same black actor playing a slave, which is yikes. This is a positive representation, I would say, because this black actor is like one of the few characters who resists the hypnosis, which is kind of cool. I kind of dig that. That's pretty progressive, I would say. But
Woke.
It's nice to have a black character who's not just a silent slave again. So I'm happy.
So Jamie escapes away from the bad guys and ends up at the Teletubby Hills. Do you know? He's at like these big, like giant rolling hills where the Teletubbies live.
And some of the actors have some trouble with this hill. You can tell they're trying to be very careful not to slide down or lose their footing. So it's fun to watch them.
But a guy with the horse comes, and Jamie manages to steal the horse and escape. In a it's a fun little action-y sequence as we go to the Doctor and Zoe coming out of a really cool. This set design here is pretty cool. It's like a keyhole almost looking door.
Kingdom Hearts again. Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah. It does have the fun part where you can see past the stage on the left-hand side of the screen, but that's just some old-timey TV jank. A bunch of people pass them, and they're like, hell, they didn't recognize us as intruders, I guess, because of the glasses that we're wearing, and they try to explore around some more, but quickly get shuffled in to listen to a lecture, and we as the audience also have to listen to this lecture, which is basically just exposition dump the scene for the next, 25 hours of this episode that's left, where they bring...
I enjoy it. They pick the actor who has the most interesting voice to listen to.
Sure.
And it feels like it doesn't feel like exposition because it is under the setting of, this is him teaching something to students rather than just him explaining his evil plan, it works completely fine with me. Going back to the scene where Jamie's on his horse, Fraser Hines apparently really loves riding horses, but one thing he loves more is women, so he's very chuffed to tell this story on the commentary. He found it difficult riding the horse wearing a kilt because all the horse hair got stuck on his legs. And on the bus home, the makeup lady gave him a thigh massage, which he really enjoyed, and that's
Cool. I'm glad that he definitely slept with that lady.
yeah.
Good for
So
him.
one thing I think Fraser Hines and Patrick Troughton really have in common is they both love ladies, and apparently there's a lot of private stories that Fraser Hines has about his time together with Patrick Troughton. So I think
I'm sure.
yeah.
I'm sure they got along just fine.
So yeah, it is the 60s. I'm not trying to cancel Fraser Hines for his behavior in
Let's
the
get him.
60s, but
Let's get him.
yeah.
How dare he have
know-
consensual sex with women?
Yeah, but there is a story in when I was researching Tomb of the Cybermen, which I don't think I actually told on air because it's kind of one of those stories that's kind of awkward to tell on the podcast and just. Again, it's the 60s. I'm not giving too much judgment to his behavior, but apparently as a prank, he tied up... he took his co-star's knickers and tied them up to a pole, and he put up a flagpole, and he tied it up, and he put up the flagpole. And it's a big haha moment where the female co-star realized that her knickers are hung up on his flagpole for everyone on set to see, and
it's I mean that's pretty bad, and I don't want to justify it in any way at all because I think it is completely unfunny. But you see similar things. It must have just been something in the air for like the next 20 years from the 60s onwards, where perverted humor was really the fucking greatest thing ever. Because you look at movies like Revenge of the Nerds and shit, where it's like the creepiest fucking rapey movie of all time, and it was played off as like, haha, what a fun prank this is. Don't get it. Glad I don't exist in that time.
It's one of those things I can't judge too harshly because I didn't grow up in the 60s, and maybe the female co-star found it very funny at the end. I don't know, but it's inappropriate.
It's a completely different world.
And it's not like we're talking about John Barrowman getting naked on set and stuff like that. It's not quite that level of inappropriate, but still,
I think different. It was a different world completely. Different moral beliefs and different fucking judgments and what was funny and etc. etc. But the lecture continues on when he brings out a soldier guy that helped the Doctor escape, who hang back from him all those episodes ago, and he's basically like, hey, this guy's like completely decoded from his brainwashing, and he knows where he is, and he describes his surroundings and things like that. There's a kind of funny shot where the Doctor's like, hey, don't tell him that I'm here, in the most obvious fucking way ever. Like, how does nobody around him not see him
he's got
do
like
that?
two of his hands and he's doing the shoosh motion.
Yeah.
But it's Patrick Troughton. He does a lot of overacting. He's a very funny man, let's say. But as the guy is giving the demonstration of re-hypnotizing him, the machine falls apart. Like there's a side panel that just falls to the ground.
Yeah. I wonder if in the colorization they'll add like a sound effect to play up.
Like
that it's
like in A New Hope when one of the
it bangs his head.
Yeah. or maybe they'll just CGI it out. Or just it's one of the things I do wonder what, because as you were saying earlier, you do see some sides of a set in some shots, but this episode probably has one of the most studio scenes we've seen in this story so far, and you can tell that they're just trying to keep to two locations, the barn and this lecture room, because they spent a lot of time here, and obviously they only have 90 minutes to shoot the studio scenes, which sounds like an absolute nightmare. So if a set falls apart and if you can see the edge of a set, there's no time for reshoots. You have to keep going, which is kind of insane,
Yeah, you do have to keep going. And he brainwashes the guy and convinces him that he's back fighting the war, and he identifies the Doctor as a German spy, as which he was programmed to do before, and that's where we leave that scene as we
Yeah.
then go off to see
ver-
Jamie get captured again.
There is something else that kind of reminds me of Westworld, where he's looking at the machine that he was brainwashed by, and he doesn't recognize it, he doesn't even see it, which reminds me of Westworld, because sometimes characters in Westworld will show the robots in Westworld some family photos of them, like, standing in front of a television in a Mickey Mouse shirt or whatever, and they look at this photograph and go, doesn't look like anything to me. And that's a common theme in Westworld, and it's one of those things. Again, I just wonder if he took inspiration from this episode of Doctor Who. I can't. It feels like it, but I just wonder if I'm the only one thinking this.
I have no idea. I've not seen Westworld, so I can't speak to it. But Jamie gets arrested again. We then go back to the Doctor, who's very upset that he was misidentified as a German spy, and stands up and corrects the lecturer. And the guy's like, "You're just a student. You shouldn't be up here." And he's like, "No, you did it wrong. Your machine is broken. Let's fix your machine." And he learns how the machine works, and we get to see the internal circuitry of the machine, which is some pretty complicated looking stuff. Some real doesn't look like just kid shapes that are stuck with some magnets on them at all. It looks like some real complicated computer circuitry. Computers are pretty magical things. As we go back to Jamie,
one of my favorite things about the second Doctor is whenever he is trying to discover something, he does it in the most obvious way possible, and he still manages to blend in. It's really funny because there was a subplot in Tomb of the Cybermen where one of the scientists who's on this expedition does a math problem wrong, and the Doctor's like, "Oh no, this is how you do a math problem," and the plot revolves around him, the Doctor solving the math problem right, and that's how they get deeper into the Tomb of the Cybermen. I just love this characterization of the second Doctor. It's really fun and just over the top. Patrick Troughton is great. Hot take.
He is. What's not great is Jamie getting captured and brought back to the same location with the same characters again, and getting to watch a repeat where they get attacked again, and then this time there's the good guys that are coming to attack them, and there's this really drawn out gunfight, and they capture Scarface Man with his very cool American accent. And they go to kill him, and Jamie's like, "No, we can't kill him. We need to question him." And they're like, "We'll kill you too if you don't get out the way." And that's the last we see of him from the episode. His entire plot this episode has been in this fucking barn. It's been in the barn. Oh, I'm getting out the barn. No, I'm not. Oh, I'm captured again. Oh, I've got out. Oh, I'm back in the barn. That fucking, it sucked. Like,
there's a lot of questions in there about not killing people, because earlier on, they had the chance to kill Jamie and Lady Jennifer, and that's like half of your problem eliminated. You have 4 people running around trying to stop this, and you have 2 of them captured, and you could kill 2 of them, and they just decide to just keep them captive. I don't understand that. They've escaped before. They know they're kind of slippery, but they don't kill him. It's kind of so obvious, isn't it?
It is, and it's terrible. And we get a less terrible scene when the war chief comes in, and he's like, "What the fuck? How did your lecture go, sir?" And he's like, "Oh, it went fine. That guy got misidentified though." And he's like, "What guy?" And he looks over to see the Doctor, who's the only one not wearing his glasses, which I think is a nice touch that he bothered to take them off because he doesn't fit in. But upon locking eyes with him, the Doctor's like, "Oh shit, let's fucking go," and everything kicks off. This moment of recognition between the Doctor and the War Chief, which is emphasized in the script as a moment of recognition between each other. So I wonder where that's going to lead into the next few episodes. Should have been a cliffhanger, because it's more of it feels more of a cliffhanger than what cliffhanger we get with it's like the Doctor and Zoe are in crazy danger, and there's 1,000 guys chasing them in this facility, but the cliffhanger is Zoe might get shot right now. Whoa! Because
if you leave a cliffhanger on the War Chief and the Doctor recognizing each
That's
other.
it's the last thing in your head.
Yeah,
like
'cause,
it's you're like, oh shit, they know each other. What does that mean? And then you're left waiting until next week. Instead, you're like, oh, Zoe's gonna die. You know?
and you have a whole week to come up with a million questions and a million theories on how they recognize each other. That is such a moment. That's a watershed moment for Doctor Who, because it's not very often in the black and white era that the Doctor recognizes someone, you know, that we as an audience haven't met before. And they kind of blow it by not making it the cliffhanger.
Yeah. And Zoe gets, as we said, Zoe gets cornered and is about to get shot. That's where the episode ends. And I think, on a whole, episode 4 is better, but slower paced than episode 3. Also, the thumbnail on BBC iPlayer is completely wrong. That's like, it's a scene of Jamie with this like psychedelic stripes behind him and a guy with the big helmet. Like, that doesn't happen in this episode at all. That's completely wrong, which is interesting. I don't know how things like that happen.
Yeah,
but it's.
The thumbnail for episode 5 is more appropriate for this episode, even though I think it's from another episode. Because the episode 5 thumbnail is the guy hypnotizing the lieutenant.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. But that is episodes 3 and 4 of the War Games. The story continues to be okay. I'm enjoying performances. Mm-hmm. The overall plot, I'm kind of intrigued by. It's the internal pacing of each episode that's killing me. With the internal pacing just being so goddamn bad.
Yeah,
you know,
I've found that a 10-year gap between watching this really helps, because I'm the first time I watched this after 10 years, it's like brand new to me, and also you have to watch each episode on its own. I think that really works as well, because if you try to watch all 10 parts in that one sitting, you're gonna lose your fucking mind. Honestly,
you'd be so bored. You'd be so bored.
Like, I just saw a tweet the other day saying, "Oh yeah, I watched all 10 episodes in one sitting," and it's like, how the fuck do you manage that? That's insane.
I wonder if it's a have it on a secondary monitor type situation.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just playing while I'm doing something, and because you can like half pay attention and still get most of the story, you know.
Part 3 and 4 is definitely getting in the right direction. That's why I say this is where shit really picks off, because I'm excited. I'm excited to cover the next 6 episodes. We're in for a treat, I think.
I think that the biggest takeaway we should take from these these episodes 3 and 4 from this story really is that you should buy my book.
Yes.
Can You Taste the Color Orange on Amazon and like wherever you buy books. Can You Taste the Color? It comes out March 28th, which just so happens to be my birthday. So, you know, if you wanted to get me an ultimate birthday present, buy a lot of copies of my book.
Yeah, buy his book and send copies to him as a birthday present.
Yeah, do that. But we will be back next week with War Games Parts 5 and 6. You were going to say something?
I was going to say something about your book, but we've moved on and I've forgotten what I was going to say. So
cool. Buy my book. War Games 5 and 6 next week. Until then, you can subscribe to us on YouTube at youtube.com/@WhoWatchesWhoPod, where you can see us in video form and see us every Friday at 8 a.m. UK time. This podcast is also available in audio form wherever you listen to podcasts: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, the Podcast Addict. There's 1,000 different podcast services. We should be on every single one of them. And if we are not, there is an RSS feed that you can plug into your podcast app of choice, and you will still be able to get episodes. Wow, the future is a wild place. Until then, follow us on Facebook, Who Watches Who, x.com @WatchesDoctor, and you know, blah blah blah. Buy my book. We will see you next week with more War Games. Bye.
Buy his book. Buy his book.